you see so many dogs,
The majority
that never get a title because they get so effed up early on as puppies, right? Where is that dynamic? I mean, talking to somebody like you or Frank, who was just here, it's almost benign. Like, why is that going on, right? Why is that going on? Why don't more people go the path of, like what we talked about with Oscar, where we're making sports fun for the dog? Why aren't more people doing that? What's the big hurdle?
Well, I've had the really good fortune to train with so many world champions and spend days with them. And one thing that Edgar Scherkel said to me is that the dog must want to. They have to. You cannot make the dog play the sport. The dog wants to play the sport. Now you play a big role in the want to, creating the want to in the dog. And one of the biggest problems, you've suffered from it, I suffered from it, everyone does, is it's a lottery. Who do you end up bringing your dog to?
All right, Danny Craig, my good friend here. Danny and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah, a while.
So the first time I ever met you or was going to know you was I was looking to buy a Malinois, and I was searching out for people who breed Malinois, and I found Temple of the Tree. And that kind of really resonated with me because of my whole background, the martial arts and all that stuff. And I looked you up and we talked, and I think we kind of really just hit it off, but you weren't breeding. So I kept looking and looking, and then I found Tasha and I bought Goofy and stuff like that. But I was always really impressed with your dedication to your dogs and stuff like that. And I want to talk about that with you today because you're one of the few people that breeds dogs, loves dogs, and trains dogs, and titles dogs, and does really, really well by your dog. So how did you first get into Malinois in general? Like, what was your catalyst?
No, that's a good question. How I got into it was with, I had Rottweilers and I was playing the sport. And I'd actually gone to one of the seminars in the late 70s with one of the, I didn't realize it at the time, but the gods of Schutzhund, who shall remain nameless. And I had my boy, my Rottweiler, Jack, and we were going through our paces, and then he called the seminar giver called us out and to demonstrate something. And Jack came out, and Jack was a big, strong, masculine Rottweiler, but he was friendly, like most of my dogs. And the seminar, what do I call the seminar guy?
Seminar giver?
Yeah. The guy that was running the thing,
right.
Said, "Oh, he likes me." And I said, "Yeah, Jack likes everyone." And he said, "Oh, he's a whore." And I was just, even though I smiled and, you know, I was so insulted.
Right.
Like, you're talking about my kid, my dog that way. And it was such a strange thing. And that's where I first saw the crude use of e-collars. I mean, it was so brutal to see dogs that, compared to what we see today, dogs just like low crawling when they were healing. They were just horrible. Well, that was my first introduction. And Jack went on to live a wonderful life with me, just doing everything, and I never did any formal training or anything like that. I just did, I taught my dogs to do stuff without knowing all the psychology. And I got a second Rottweiler that was supposed to just be babysitting him while I waited for a litter of Rottweilers. And this was Anzio. And that was a big mistake on my part, in the sense that I thought, I will be able to return the dog once he's lived with me for a while. And Anzio had so many problems. He was such a fearful boy.
Oh, wow.
But he had the soul of a poet. He was such a sweet boy, but he was so afraid of the world. And he was scary, he's a very, very little pigmentation, so he's very black, and he just was scary to people, had a very masculine head. And I took him to a local Schutzhund club because I saw Anzio's dad had all these letters in the back of his name, you know, like Schutzhund this and all these titles, all these letters that I didn't know what they meant. But I'd always always enjoyed playing sports. And I was getting at a point in my life now when I'm like in my early 30s, mid 30s, thereabouts. And me playing sports, the sports I wanted to play, are dying out. I'm, you know, not really physically able to do what I used to do, but gosh, there's a sport that I can play with my best friend. And that's how I got into it. And so Anzio, you know, it was horrible what went on with Anzio because he's absolutely not the kind of dog that you should do this with. He was afraid. He was a sweetheart, but he was afraid. He was so defensive. And then one day, the training director, who was also a dog vendor, showed up with like 5 or 6 Malinois that he just imported from the Netherlands or something. They maybe were KMPV dogs, I don't know. But he brought those dogs out from the plane to the field. And he brought these dogs out, and I saw them. And I thought, these are exactly, they're emotional. They're very sensitive. They're just like my Rottweilers. You know, Rottweiler's big and strong, but they're very sensitive dogs. And the lightest correction is going to be all that you need with them. And I saw them, and they're just like my Rottweilers, but they're insane athletes. And that's how I got into Malinois. And I ended up finally finding one, doing all my due diligence and my research, and finding one in Denmark with Dennis Schold. And that's Finn and Margit that have that kennel that had been very successful in the world scene. And I imported my first really successful dog, Uncas, and his children are still here. I have an old one. I know a few others are still alive elsewhere. And Uncas did really well for me, and that's basically where I started with Uncas. And then a year or two after I had Uncas, and he was titling and competing at regional and national events, Margit of Danestol told me there's a really neat breeding in Denmark that you might be interested in. And I contacted Liz Foe. They didn't really have a kennel, but she had a wonderful male and a female named Liddy that came from really wonderful lines, you know, Elgos and, the other Dupatois lines. And I ended up importing my little female Anne, who is the kind of the one that everybody fell in love with because she was the most beautiful puppy I've ever seen. I know when I showed her to a reputable breeder, she said, "This is Showlines. Look at the size of her ears. They're too small." And I said, "No, she's not Showline." But she was that pretty. And people really loved her. Anne is still to this day the dog that scored the most points in an event for me. She scored 293 points. But it wasn't fair for Uncas because Anne got little cute points. You know, she is adorable and had such charisma that she got these extra points. And I knew Uncas was so much better, but Anne would beat him. And so those were the breeding females that we started with. And one thing that was always important to me is I want to make sure that I'm responsible. So I did basically the 3 things to get your surf, the hips, the elbows, and the eyes. And I did it on every pair that I've ever bred. And I've walked away from breedings with really promising dogs because for whatever reason, some Malinois people don't want to do it. They don't think it's necessary and so forth. And I can point to something that's happened that shows that it's really necessary to do some tests.
Yeah, I do.
You know, Embark does that DNA testing right now. And so I've tested like my 3 most recent Malinois, Dewey, Elf, and Anaconda. And Dewey and Anaconda are absolutely clear, right? But Elf, the dog that's been the most successful dog I've ever had, he's just so beautiful and wonderful. He has a recessive gene that is a horrible recessive gene. And it's, you know, if anybody wants to know that, I'll send them the DNA report. But it's a cerebral. It's something that the puppies will die if the mother has this recessive genes as well. It's a horrible one.
Wow.
So some people will say you can still breed elf so long as you ensure that to a female, but you got to make sure that any of the puppies that come out, some of those puppies will come out with a copy of that gene. Those puppies you don't want to let be bred. But I don't trust what's going to happen down the road. So elf, I've never bred him, but it came from either Anne, the beautiful little female, or the dog I bred Anne to, Biko, a Berlichshoof dog, who was an amazing dog. And Anne and Biko made an amazing A-litter. And those dogs were sensational, but either Addie, the daughter, had it, or Biko did it, and that's who passed it along to Elf. And so Elf has it. And if I didn't do these testing, I wouldn't know it, and I would be passing it along. And this has become a problem with Malinois, apparently, from what I've read, is that there is this component. These different breeds have different problems.
Yeah, for sure.
Like hip dysplasia is not a big issue. And it was one of the big concerns for why I went with a Malinois instead of a Shepherd, a German Shepherd.
Me too, yeah.
So that's how I got into it, and I always wanted to be, I just wanted to be different, and I wanted to make sure that we did everything by the book.
What year was that when you had the Rots and you first saw Schutzhund?
Probably in the late 70s, 78, 79, something.
Because you've been in this about 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah, well, been really, I got Anzio about 30 years ago.
Wow.
Thereabouts. And so that was my first, but that was my earlier introduction. When I saw it, I thought, this is horrible.
Yeah, right.
This is horrible.
Yeah, it was.
I would never do this to my dog.
Right.
No matter how many points are involved.
It's interesting because, I think so many people see the dog sports, whether it's, let's just stay with the biting ones, the KMPV, IPO, Schutzhund, Mondio, French Ring. They go, I love dogs. I want to do this. And then they're confronted with the brutality of what these sports once were. I mean, and having talked to a lot of people, and having been in the sport for a very short period of time compared to you or Frank or Avi or whoever, I thought, this is kind of cool. Like, and I saw good training. Unfortunately, as I've made known to you, I think I was a victim of some bad training because I ended up taking my dog to a club that was close by, and I didn't agree with the way things were done. And by that time, it was too late. I mean, what I really think is so important, I want to talk to you about today is, this whole idea that you take puppies, and you said something really interesting to me. You said, and this is years back, and I'm going to reflect on a lot of things you said, because you've been a very big influence to me, the way I see Malinois and the way I see dog sports, that almost any Malinois, you could put a 3 on, right? An IPO 3 on.
At the club level.
Of course, and that's exactly what I mean. Yet, you see so many dogs.
The majority
that never get a title because they get so effed up early on as puppies, right? Where is that dynamic? I mean, talking to somebody like you or Frank, who was just here, it's almost benign. Like, why is that going on, right? Why is that going on? Why don't more people go the path of, like what we talked about with Oscar, where we're making sports fun for the dog? Why aren't more people doing that? What's the big hurdle?
Well, I've had the really good fortune to train with so many world champions and spend days with them. And one thing that Edgar Scherkel said to me is that the dog must want to. They have to. You cannot make the dog play the sport. The dog wants to play the sport. Now you play a big role in the want to, creating the want to in the dog. And one of the biggest problems, you've suffered from it, I suffered from it, everyone does, is it's a lottery. Who do you end up bringing your dog to? Because they're the expert.
Yeah, and who do you trust?
And you don't know.
Right.
You don't know. But I've seen people, the only way you can do it is you have to see them train their own dog, and then you have to see the results.
Yeah.
You have to see that first and see if that's the picture. And so often people don't see that, but there's a Dunning-Kruger effect that plays a role in all of this, is that you can a person can see a dog healing and go, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then they can take their dog out and heal, and they think their dog healed just like that. Right. It's kind of like American Idol, where these people that can't sing think they can sing.
Because people told them they can sing,
yeah,
right?
And they even when people tell them they can't sing, they think the people are wrong. The judges are wrong. They can't see talent.
Yeah.
And so it takes something to be able to be really honest and to honestly see what you need to see.
Yeah.
And so when you're finding somebody, it's just unfortunate you'll end up destroying your first dogs unless you got so lucky to find, an Ivan Balabanov or someone, in this state, there are a few guys that, especially in developing young dogs, they're talented and they're going to do it. Now, to get them to go to the next level at the World Championships, they're going to go, and if your dog's good enough, they can take them there and help you.
Right.
But one of the problems I've always had with that aspect of it is a lot of people want somebody else to train their dog instead of you training your dog.
Yeah.
So as a longtime training director, that's one of the problems I had is I'll help you train your dog.
Yeah. But a lot of times I see a lot of, at club levels especially, they try to do all the training. Like a lot of these training directors will go in there and go, let me see him, let me do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I've seen it where the training director has the e-collar and the clicker.
Right.
And when the handler hears the click, he drops the ball. And I'm just like, what fun is that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little story. And this was, there's always drama at various clubs, and this was at my own club. And we had a rich club member who was able to just buy dogs. And he bought a dog that was scoring like 275, 280 in the Netherlands, a German Shepherd. And he brought him here. And I'd seen him with this young dog, and it was just brutal. It was horrible what happened to that young dog. And the young dog that was incredible never amounted to anything. I don't think it even got a BH. Maybe it got a BH. But he took this dog that he'd purchased and won, I think, at DVG Nationals or something like that with this dog. Or he won one of the national events. There's the two German Shepherd organizations. He didn't win USA, but he won one of them. And I remember we got into it over something. I can't remember what it was, but he said to me, he said, and you know what? You're the only one that didn't congratulate me when I came back after winning the whatever it was. And it made me, for once in my life, be speechless. I was like, oh my gosh, was I that rude? And I went home and I examined, why didn't you say good job or anything? And you know what it was? Is in my brain, not thinking about it, I just didn't count that.
Right.
Because that's not your dog.
No, you bought the dog, right?
You took him out. And so, I don't want to take anything away from you, but I just, in my book, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
And that's why I always, for me, I took 8-week-old, 7-week-old, 6-week-old puppies, and I took them as far as they could go, and then I kept them. That's why I ended up with a bunch of dogs. But I ended up, over the course of this time, getting titles on 11 of my dogs.
Wow.
All the way. And, 5 of them.
And serious titles, by the way.
Yeah, 5 of them were on podiums at regional or national events.
Oh, that's good.
And I just did it with babies. I don't know that they're going to be good. Like some of like Brogan, who's still with me right now, she's barely with me. I took her to a 1, and I realized she's not having fun.
Right.
Her personality wasn't good for my personality because I'm pretty abrasive. I'm pretty impatient. I'm pretty pushy and all of that. And you got to be kind of robust and Brogan got a little like, are you going to get mad at me again or anything like that? And so she became more so robotic. I didn't feel the joy and the let's go, Dad. And so at 1, she SG'd at a 1 level, and I retired her, and she's been living family life with us since that point. Awesome. So I take them to their levels. As long as they were having fun, and as long as they were having fun, we go. Yeah.
I mean, that's something that's, I think, so important, too, because people oftentimes, and I've seen this with people I've trained privately, I say just find something your dog wants to do. And I remember I said this at the club where I trained, which is going to remain nameless. Somebody said, I got to do this with my dog. And I said, you know what? the day Goofy's not having fun with it is the day I leave. And that is the day I left, right? I didn't believe that you should have your dog doing something just because when I taught karate, everybody was like, oh, I always want to do karate. My son should do karate. It's the worst reason in the world, right? Oh
gosh, on 2 points. One, I put my daughter in jiu-jitsu. Oh my gosh.
Did she love it?
She was so bad. And I made her do it for 2 years.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm just hoping, you know, she's going to be able, a little self-defense, learn this stuff.
Yeah.
She's just so non-combative at all. And I could see she was doing it. She was being a good soldier, but she wasn't having fun. And so finally I said, okay, that's enough. You missed your last belt promotion. That's enough. Yeah. Let's do something you're going to have fun. So now she's running, and she's being very successful as a runner. And so you got to do that. But one of the big problems, Robert, you know this, is some people can't see that their dog's not having fun. Yeah. They can't see that their dog is stressing. You and Frank talked about this, that they can't see that this dog thinks this is Vietnam. And it's horrible for that dog, and the dog is not going to live very long. It's so stressed out. It's so full of cortisol. And they don't see it. Yeah. And I've seen people, I know they love their dogs. And I've never been able to put that love that I know they would spend any amount of money on any vet bill for their dog, no matter how old it is, with the kind of training they will put that dog through at the hands of an expert.
Yeah. That's the worst.
And that's the deal. You don't know because you kind of believe that the person that you've gotten into the club with, that's the expert. And everybody, the little crowd there, they all think that person's the expert.
And nobody challenges it.
Well, when you do challenge it, that's the kind of political thing. And if I've always had a problem with thinking for myself. And if it doesn't make sense,
you got to question it.
You're going to, I want to do it. And now you haven't done anything yet. Yeah. And this person may have titled one dog in their life.
Or more.
Maybe.
Right.
But, you know, in my case, I don't know that they'd ever titled a dog. But they were the expert, and the club members really believed in them. And here's me. I haven't ever done anything. I've lived with my dogs and taken them everywhere, and they know all sorts of things, all sorts of tricks. I never used treats or anything. I just here, lay down, push him down on the ground, and roll over. Good. Now let's do it again. Lay down, down, roll over. Oh, now they're doing it. Now let me add a shooting them. In fact, I did that. You know, I had that whole thing with my first Cairn Terrier, Eddie, and I had some friends up in San Francisco, woke San Francisco, and this is before they were really woke, but they were still woke enough. I'm tending bar, and I bring Eddie into the bar after it's all closed down, and I say, hey, you guys watch this. And I go, Eddie, sit up. And I go walking away from Eddie, and then I wheel around, and I turn, and I go, bang, shoot him, and he ducks, right? And the crowd went, oh, that's horrible.
Are you serious?
And I said, it wasn't real bullets. We didn't really shoot them.
It wasn't even a real gun.
But you know what? I swear, I stopped doing that trick after that.
Funny.
You know, because people thought that's a awful trick to teach your dog.
Well, but people think training dogs, I mean, you know, I remember so many times, why do you train your dog? Why does your dog walk a certain way? I mean, we've really evolved. It's nuts.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can see both sides of that. Like, how far am I willing to push my dog in order to get a point?
Yeah.
And people, you know, there's an old German saying that between 96 and 100 is 0.
Explain that to me. What do you mean by that?
Well, you want 97?
Yeah.
Push harder.
Oh,
you got 0 now.
Oh, right. That's very true. That's a really good point.
It's so true. You're pushing and you're pushing, and you're really hurting the dog in order to make sure that dog walks that fine line. Yeah. And I've always had real problems. This is a problem with outing, because every good dog, they don't want to let go.
Of course not.
That's why they're a good dog.
Right.
And in order to get them to let go, especially when you can't recreate that training scenario at your club. Now you're at a different place with a national caliber helper that's put the you-know-what on the dog, and that dog is fired up and loving every second of it. He's really in the fight, and you from 80 meters away yell, out! And he's supposed to maybe hear you.
Yeah, right.
And he does. You can't recreate that at your club.
Never.
You can't.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't. Now, how are you going to do it? You're going to have to use electricity.
Right.
And how are you're going to teach that, obviously, from all the way. But at some point, you're going to have to say, you got out.
Right.
You got out, or this is going to happen. You got to stay out of the freeway, or this is going to happen.
Right.
You got to stay away from the rattlesnake, or this is going to happen. Yeah. There's no other way to couch it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you can do all the teaching. Now, I know I have a dog that could do it. Could out without any electricity. I don't know why. That's Elf. I never did anything. He has the perfect full grip, and he outs with his transmission. It just stops, and he's into guarding, and he knows it. Wow. But there have been a couple of occasions where I had to go to the third, one more out, and,
right.
And we're just DQ'd.
Wow.
And fortunately, he let go. But that's right. When they get into the fight.
Yeah.
So, you know, these are some of the considerations when you're going out there and trying to recreate the setting.
Yeah.
At a big level.
It's very hard. But I think that's where we talk about this all the time, is that's the difference between a club level dog and a national level dog. It's just genetics. I think it's either in the DNA or it's not.
Yeah, club level, you can even just stay on your club field.
Right, right, exactly. You can just do the whole, all three titles, all three things.
Everything on your field, and it's still not easy. It's hats off to anybody that has legitimate titles at their club.
I think it's great.
You've done a great job.
Yeah, for sure.
And as long as you've been good by your dog's going to be happy. Yeah. You're going to be closer than you've ever been. Yeah. That's a hell of an accomplishment to get. Just a 1.
It's
even
awesome.
Your BH is harder to
BH is awesome. Yeah, everybody should try to do it.
So all of these things that take so much dedication and hard work, you got to be pretty special to get that done. Most people are unable to get that done.
I agree. But most people lack dedication to do it. I mean, it's just, I think, structure in your life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You got to have time for it. You got to enjoy it just as much as your dog does.
Yeah, for sure. So many things I want to talk to you about. One thing I really want to talk to you about, because I think this is such an important piece, and you can speak on it so clearly. Somebody gets a puppy. Right, the puppy comes from the breed, a good breeder, and they want to do a protection sport with the dog. So I always say, get to a good club and get those foundations at 8, 10, 12, 16 weeks, because it's just such an imprint on the dog that they need to have. But 2 things. One is sometimes there's not a good club, and that club might screw them up, or there's no club at all. Yeah. Right? So besides obedience, what do you think somebody could do with their puppy if they want to get into the sports to start conditioning them for this transition into this world? What would you do as with your 10-week-old puppy?
Yeah, see, I did all of the foundation work on all of my dogs.
Yep.
I do all of their, from all of this stuff. Even when they're older, I'm still doing 80-90% of their decoy work, which can create a problem. But my dogs are genetically, they have what I call combativity. They like fighting. It's just like some of us like wrestling. We like the engagement. And that's that's genetic. They're going to be in there. So you get a little puppy. I like to get them right at 7 weeks personally. That's my little sweet spot.
I do too.
And so the first thing you want to do is, as far as obedience, I'm terrible with, too much structure. My dogs have terrible house manners and pet manners. Okay. They're not, you wouldn't think that I could train a dog with the way they jump on you or misbehave and stuff like that. But with a puppy that I want to play the sport in, I will, first of all, you got to get going with tracking. You can go to any park and you got to get going with that. The next thing I would say you need to do is I think, basically the protection sport, I'm just talking about IPO and Schutzhund.
Right.
And what is it?
IGP now,
IGP now. That's basically just an advanced form of tug of war. That's what it is. And so with a leather rag, because you want to use a really chamois type of thing, but you need to clean it because it has chemicals in it. You need to put that on a string or a fishing pole, and you need to really begin to stimulate the prey drive in your pup. And then you have to have some skill at navigating the gripping behavior you want to have if the dog just doesn't naturally re-grip with the back of his mouth. You just want to get that, and so that the dog wins its little toy. And I like to play with 2 different ones. Okay. So they win it, they take it, and I go start playing with the other one. And they drop that one, and they come over with this one. And at some point at home, when they're picking up a sock or they're picking up a things, you got to start teaching them, let it go, oust.
Yep.
You need to teach out young before it's a thing. You just, without
Pressure.
making it a big deal.
Yeah.
Just and you can be dead. You can no, stop it, let go.
Yeah.
I'm personally, I talk to my dogs in complete sentences.
Yeah.
I'm not this. Oh, you need to use
Right.
this word this way. The dogs pick up so many different inflections, your body language, the noise coming out of your mouth. Who knows what
pressure?
They just can. There's all sorts of ways. So it's easy for me to communicate the way I communicate just naturally, and that's how I convey to them what I want them to do. So the biggest thing is chase, 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 catch.
Yep.
Chase, 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 catch.
Yeah.
And then when they're chasing, you got to make it hard for the little puppy. Don't make it easy. You make it hard for them to
Build
catch
that
it.
drive.
And when they catch it by one tooth, it's like fishing. If you know, when you're fishing and you get that hook set, you gotta you can't let any slack in that line when the hook is set. When the puppy gets one tooth on that rag, right? You got to keep tension in it, but reel it into you.
Right.
Tension, tension, tension. Don't let it go loose, because if that puppy goes to regrip, he's going to lose it, just like he's going to lose the rabbit. If he lets go and adjusts his grip, he's going to lose that rabbit. He's going to lose this thing. So tension, 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 and then you can get up to him, right next to him, and then kind of open up the thing while there's tension on it, and open it and wait for that little regrip to grab it, and then you won it. Set the grip a little bit, and you won. And this is the kind of the little formula for slowly but surely developing this thing. And it sounds easy, but from the looks of it, it's hard for people to do.
What do you think? Because you said you do a lot of the decoy work, and a couple of people, like Eric and Oscar, and a lot of people talk about this same thing, at least in this more modern style of decoy training, or I should say bite training. It used to be said that don't let the dog bite on you. You can't do this. But for some people, I would think that's right. I would think certain people shouldn't have the dog biting.
If you got a dog that is defensive like that, he may, he may think, no, you're my dad, you're the boss. I don't want to bite that. But my dogs have all been taught that no, we're getting after it. It's just like you would with your brother. You get after it with your brother, and sometimes you really get mad at your brother, and that's the best kind of aggression, because it's not the cortisol stress aggression. That's the I'm mad at you aggression. And the dog learns, hopefully, that have the genetics, that it's okay to get mad at dad in this context and really win. Because guess what? I've won 1,000 times when I got this mad at dad. And then you'll control your dog. You'll control your dog. You don't have to worry about you're not the pack leader. This other baloney. But the old days was you don't do any protection work for a year or two.
Remember that?
Nothing. And they wanted these really, really seriously civil dogs.
Defensively.
But really, what you want in terms of a healthy dog is a dog genetically that loves combat. It loves combat. It loves to compete against the bad guy. And you'll see it come out when you go to a strange field with a good strange decoy. You'll see what your dog's made of genetically right there.
That's one of the key times you really see it, don't you?
You'll see it, and that's why the difficulty is preparing your dog. So for me, I'll just like everything you learn in life, there's a staircase or a ladder, and every rung of the ladder you want to proceed up there one by one. So if you have a little baby and you are at home playing that rag game, and now you go to the field, you're playing a new place, new field, playing the rag game, and now next thing is let's up it up a notch, right? And let's let one of my female club members, you go out and play with her. And they'll go out and play. So that's a different person, but not a really powerful person. Or one of my older club members that are kind of gentle and nice, and they go out and we gradually increase the threshold of this game of tug of war, where you're fighting and chasing and winning. Winning.
You had such a good thing you said to me too, because in Schutzhund we've got the stick hits, right? And it's a very soft leather stick. I mean, I've used it at the shelters a lot. I always showed people like, look here, because I would use it to correct dogs. So in that, depending on how it's introduced to an animal, it could be a corrective device or like a clatter stick in the ring sports. It brings the drive up, where I use a clatter stick in the shelter and it really just shuts the dog down. You had a really great piece that I never forgot. I always said my next puppy I'm going to do this with. You said before you would ever show the dog the soft stick, you would work them and show them those pool noodles. That was one of your secret techniques, right?
I just beat the hell out of the dogs with the noodles.
The pool noodles, right?
And they just it's the same thing when you want to desensitize your dog to environmental things. You throw them into a pool of balls, those plastic balls, and there's all that noise and all the bottles are rattling around. And now they're just, you got a little pool nozzle. It's big.
Yeah.
It makes a big noise when it hits them, but it's just nothing. And this is what the dog begins to think. I'm King Kong. This is nothing.
Yeah.
And you're doing this all developmentally, and the dog has to have the genetics to, at the other end. At this end, every puppy can do this part. Pretty much. I had a Rottweiler Cleo that I just did tracking with that I could see right away. We're not doing any protection work. She don't want to do it.
Oh, she don't want to do it.
She's a sweetheart. She's just too sweet, and she does not have any combativity. I imported her. I flew to Stockholm over a weekend, picked her up, and brought her back home, and she is the most beautiful, wonderful dog. Recently passed away. We miss her still. But I could tell. I could just see, and there's no way I'm putting her in a situation where she's in fear for her life. And that's the problem that people need to recognize. Is your dog afraid? And they have a hard time seeing it. And a lot of people think, oh, we can work that dog through that, and that dog will become brave. I've heard it said many, many times, and maybe it does happen occasionally, but I sure haven't ever seen it happen. You are what you are. And if you're brave enough to get in that ring, that's something. But some people, I don't care how many times they get in that ring, they're going to be terrified. And that is horrible. I just think to myself, if I was in such a scary place, would it's the golden rule, treat others the way you would like to be treated. And as an athlete, I wouldn't want to be put in a situation like that.
Do you think that helps you a lot? Because you and I are both athletes, both martial artists and stuff like that. Do you think reflecting back on your joys and your fears, that lets you read a dog? I think it does for me, but does it help you read the dog better?
I think, having that sense of empathy. Right now, I, played in sports, but I've also been a school teacher for 30 years, the last 15 or so teaching psychology. So all of this stuff helps me in formulating what I think is happening inside that dog's head. This area of study is called theory of mind in philosophy and in psychology. The idea that I'm looking at you and I have an idea about what's going on in your own head, but I'm guessing. Right.
For sure.
And some people with autism, they don't have that. They don't look at you and have a feeling about what you're feeling. And so when we look at our dogs, what is the dog thinking? And I know, I'll bet you money, you've told people that you're helping that you need to know what the dog is going to think next. You have to know what that dog is thinking. You have to think it before the dog thinks it, so that you can stop it before he does something that actually gets him into trouble. And so that's that. And I don't know I guess you can get better with it with practice, and some people are better at it naturally. They just intuit what the animal is feeling, and they can sense it.
I mean, it's funny when you say you can get better at it. I equate it to this. I always wanted to be a singer, right? And I can't sing. I took singing lessons. I spent thousands of dollars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I took singing lessons. And her name was Darlene, whatever, I forget her last name. She said, okay, this is an E, 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 E. And then she'd play the G, 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 and it'd be E, E, E. And she said, you're on the wrong key. And I said, no, I'm not. And I couldn't get it, and no matter how much, and then I would become a technical singer, like la, 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 where I would stay on the note, but it was never natural, right? It was never like that. And I think dog sports, or at the level that you're doing, at the level I was doing in shelter work, or even the level that I'm trying to help people with now, it's really like, it's just a flow. It's like martial arts. You either got it. I mean, I can teach you to block and to punch, but if you don't see that block coming and it's too late, you're going to get punched in the face, right? And I think that's like that with dogs. I mean, I wish people could just...
Yeah, it's the idea that everybody can do it.
They can't, right?
And now what do you do when you see that, the person can get better?
For sure,
you got better as a singer.
Yeah.
You'll get better.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not as patient as you, I'm sure.
I don't think so.
And so it was very, very, I was not a successful training director, I don't think.
Oh, I think
because
you were.
I
disagree.
I just was too impatient, I think, and I wanted to train the person and not the dog. It's the same thing when you've referred people to me, and I see them and I see what they want the dog to do, and I'm almost on the dog side. In this scenario, I'm like, why the dog is 9 months old, and why do you want it to look at you all the time? Why do you want it to focus? Just go for a walk with the. I kind of end up being Like, this is how you should treat the dog.
Yeah.
And you should change, not the little
pup. But that's so powerful. Like, and that's why I've told you before. I've recommended you to several people. I mean, if I was going to say who should train your dog, I would say you, because you have this empathy. You're afraid to charge money. I mean, all the time you say, I don't want to charge them. It's just like because you're helping them. And by having that empathy and by not being that dog trainer, you're actually able to communicate to these people, what is that dog thinking? Like, what's going through his head right now? And if they don't get that, you just can't train a dog.
Yeah. Why do you, I think about it I think the dogs are like little mentally challenged kids.
For sure.
That's what they are. You're expecting too much of them. And this is a young kid. This isn't even a mature kid. Yeah. And it's just not fair to me. And so I think I end up always, now there's so easy things to teach, but I meet people that they already have done that and they're almost overthinking it, and they want something from the dog that is not realistic. They need a robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a living creature with feelings and an inner
emotions,
mind. Yeah. An inner world that has things that engage it and don't engage it. They're very complex in that way. And you need to respect that. And every one of my dogs, every dog that you work with, every one of them, every human being, it's amazing. They're all different. And you know, when somebody says, this is my program, every dog gets this program. And I'm like, that's like me as a teacher teaching every kid, or as a coach teaching every one of my wrestlers exactly the same way. There's some wrestlers I could yell at them. I could have hit them with a 2x4. I didn't, but I could have. And they would respond. They'd go through a brick wall. And there are other guys that I didn't want to look cross-eyed at because they would crumble. And they were great. Yeah. But you just had to modify your approach with every single one. You train the dog that's in front of you.
And I always say, you got the dog you got.
Yeah.
Like, your dog might, they always say, I want my dog to be like Goofy. I go, well, the Goofy's taken. Right? It's like, you can't get that.
And your dog loves you.
Yeah, all my dogs love me. And you said something that was really important. We talked about this. There's so many conversations we've had that I think reflect back on. We were talking about aggression, and we both dealt with aggression. I've dealt with it, serious aggression in the shelter environment. And I realized that you said something that I felt. You said, I get so mad at them when they're aggressive, because you know where it's going to end the dog up. It's going to end the dog up with me working at the shelter. And if you can't and this is why I really hate the positive only approach. I love positive training, but positive only is just cutting your nose off to spite your face. Because sometimes that dog needs to have his cage rattled to know, I'm not allowed to do that shit, right? That's out. I'm not allowed to do that. And we both have that feeling where it's like, we love dogs, and I know you love dogs, and I hope you'll give me some videos that we can post here of your dogs like biking with you in this amazing terrain and living in your life. You have so many dogs, but that people won't embrace that I might have to be tough with this dog to get them to understand you're not allowed to do that, because it's going to cause you, like running into the highway, right?
Yeah, or the one that everybody buys into is rattlesnake training.
Right. Yep.
There's only one way to do it.
Only one.
And for anybody that doesn't know, fortunately now we've got ethical rules about the treatment of the snakes. That was uncool in the old days. They'd do horrible things to the snakes, staple their head shut, things like that. But now that's illegal, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
So they'll take those snakes and they will tape their mouth shut, something like that, so that they can't actually hurt the dog. And the curious dog, I've lost a dog to, as I mentioned earlier, to a rattlesnake bite. The dog will go up there curiously and smell that dog. And when that dog does, that dog gets lit up at the highest level of electricity that you can. That does not create any permanent damage to the dog's skin or anything like that. But that dog will levitate. And you want that, because that is the most powerful one-episode learning experience that dog's going to ever have. And this is researched. This is the longest lasting form of learning, is from a startling negative experience. And now what you've done is inoculated your dog against a horrible tragedy happening, them going up and seeing what is that danger worm doing there, rattling and getting bit in the nose. And I've gone through that. So that's that you have to say no. And I have a teenage daughter as well, and you can see you have to draw the line. This is unacceptable. You cannot do it, and there are going to be dire consequences if you do. So with any of the training, any of the aggression, like I think I might have mentioned to you, I'm like around my house, I'm a very affectionate guy with all the dogs. Yeah. They know it, and I'm very tactile. I'm grabbing people, picking people up, and whatever. But I'm like Saddam Hussein. I've got 3 big boys that are all ass kickers, and a girl that is just a little monster. She's like, I'm looking for trouble every second of her life. Yeah, she's incredible. And my dogs would get into it, but they are all together. But they're not all together if I think my daughter's going out with them or my wife is going out with them, because they don't see either of them as their boss. But I'm their leader when I go out there. And there's no way they're doing. I look at them. I look at Vim, my big German Shepherd, and I look at what he's looking at. If he's looking at Dewey, I tell him, knock it off. I'm managing the situations, but I can see things that my wife and my daughter, and they're nonviolent.
Right.
I can be very violent if I have to be.
For sure.
Because I want my dogs to live together. And so, like I said, I'm like Saddam Hussein there. I keep all the warring factions at bay. You might not like each other, but everybody better be cool, or you're going to get in trouble. And so we all run together, are together without any collars, nothing. Because physically, I'll just go grab you.
And that's
I keep cloth collars on people. You know, like just a regular.
On dogs.
Yeah, my dogs.
Yeah, you said people. Some people might think.
I think my fur people. Yeah, I keep those those collars on because that's the way. It's hard to break up a big dog fight when you don't have a collar to grab onto, especially 2 big boys. And for the first time ever, Dewey and his son Elf, they got into an argument. I couldn't believe it. They've been together. You know, I always put them together, and they got into. I was like, what are they? Are they fighting out there? And I looked out the window, and they're tangled up. And by the time
Dewey and Elf,
they're big boys. And I don't know. I look at Elf, and he's staring at his dad sometimes, like, you know, what do you? And, you know,
I could take you.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's some of that. I don't know what it is, but I was able to, just by marching out into that yard, and I was thinking, oh crap, I got to break this up because they're getting after it, and by the time I got to them with my swearing and whatever I was saying, they broke it up on their own. I've been with dogs in the past. That's why it's so important to me that my dogs coexist. Because I've been in nightmare scenarios where you have to keep everybody separate or they'll kill each other.
Worse.
It's the worst to live like that. And just my presence and my irritation, my anger was enough to cause them to stop. I made them both do some obedience there in front of me. And then that gives me the opportunity to say, you know, plots, sit, plots, sit, plots, sit, plots. Now wait a second, and then okay, we're cool. I put you in a doghouse. Now I'm letting you out of the doghouse because you behave yourself.
Or I'll kill you.
You see what I'm saying? So I gave them a way back. That we're all cool now. It's over. And so, you know, it'll happen, but you have to be, there has to be something that is a deal breaker.
I used to say, you know, I mean, when I was at the shelter, I used to tell people that, or in any situation, if a dog has aggression, that dog has to fear something more than the joy of the aggression, because dogs get a kick out of fighting. If a dog is really aggressive, that's his he loves that.
I've seen dogs learn to love to fight.
They love to fight.
They learn it because it's an adrenaline rush, they just love it. The problem is how much are they thinking about fighting? That part you can control, but the emotional response when they start it, now you're in trouble. So any of these dogs that have this kind of aggression, it's going to be a management issue the rest of their lives. They're never not going to go, okay, I want to kill this dog.
Especially with females. I always say it with females. I mean, I would much rather break up two male dogs fighting than 2 females fighting. It's always the worst in clients, in shelters, and everything. I've always seen that. But again, you know, there's this theory in the positive only thing. I want to kind of bring it up to you. They say that there's the scientific language, which is always BS to me. They said that if you put a negative, like a correction on a dog, you're pushing out warning signals. And I always thought that was such a BS analogy that these people start to believe.
What do you mean by that? Pushing out warning signals?
So it's their terminology. They say, let's say the dog is lunging at the other dog, and I have a prong collar and e-collar, and I go, hey, knock it off, bang, bang. I call it an interruptive signal, right? It's interruptive behavior. You're doing something, and I am able to get you to go, hey, and you go, what? To pull you away from that for a second.
You tell them to stop it.
Stop it, right? But I'm getting something in. It's like somebody who's hysterical, and I smack them in the face, and I go, listen,
Yeah.
Gotcha, right? You're paying attention now.
Yeah.
So their theory is, I'm pushing out the warning signal. If I don't let you bark, then you're going to snap.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's BS, but people believe it.
Yeah, it's the idea that the dogs or us are tea kettles.
Right.
And if you don't let off the steam, then in psychology we know this is false. You shouldn't act on all of your anger.
Right.
Anger makes more. Violence makes more.
Begets more violence.
The idea you have to interrupt the behavior. I'm not sure, what was the terminology used?
Pushing out warning signals.
Yeah, but the terminology you use when you
interruptive behavior.
Yeah, you're interrupting that. You're before they're at number 10, you're at 3. Tell them, knock it off. That's this is same thing when I look over and I see Vim. He stares at Dewey or Elf.
Right.
I know they don't. I know Vim doesn't care for Elf. I know it, but he's never done anything with Elf. But that's because I always monitor him and I look at his eyes, and if he looks, I interrupt that behavior. I tell him, knock it off. I know what you're thinking.
Right.
You're thinking you don't like Elf. Stop thinking that.
You have to like him.
Yeah. Or I don't know about that.
Like him.
You just look at something you do like.
Yeah. Or just act like you like him, right? Yeah, that's... So I want to go back into Schutzhund for a second. I mean, we could talk for days and stuff, and we probably will end up doing that. So one of the things we talked about is tracking.
Yeah.
Right. So I think tracking is the coolest thing. Like, I love the idea of tracking, but I'm crippled by the fear of my dog sniffing in a field and sniffing up poison or something like that. Always been a big fear of mine.
Yeah.
Right. How do you? Because I think tracking is such an important part for the dog. It's such a good mind game for them to learn to figure stuff out. How do you protect your dogs, your puppies, especially a young puppy, if you're taking them out in the field to track them?
Well, to that point, I don't know this, but Uncas, my first serious competition dog, and Anzio, the one that kind of got me into it, both of them, Uncas died of cancer, like 8, shoulder cancer, bone cancer up here, and Anzio died of a... nasal
carcinoma.
Nasal carcinoma, like right up here in his head.
Boy.
And and for me, I was tracking in places like up in Oceanside on the farmland up there. The federal laws about what you can spray and can't spray up there. I have no idea, but my sense was that they were much more liberal than they would be in a park now. I think in your parks, they're not allowed to spray anything.
Right. Yeah.
Because kids are there.
Right.
So you're safe in parks.
Okay.
The problem is when you go out to farmland or to sod farms, what are they putting on their stuff? And
well, you would think they would. They got to be putting something. I mean, I've never seen grass so green on a sod farm, right?
Yeah.
Or the vegetables all grow. I can't grow corn out here to save my life.
No, that's why some of the guys that have relationships with the sod farmers can find out when they are spraying and what they are putting out there. But honestly, I don't know enough. But that is one of the... Obviously, there can't be that much bad stuff in these dead fields that are just plowed dust. But that's the whole tracking portion of the sport is just impossible for anybody unless they live in Kentucky and the Midwest or someplace like
Europe,
that.
Right?
Yeah, Europe. Or anyway, forever people have wished that they would pick some sort of other phase that incorporates or tests for the same traits.
But aren't they doing that now? I heard the new is it Schutzhund, USA Schutzhund or American Schutzhund? They're going to do like a scent detection, like with Mondio, like finding scents.
I don't know. That is something people have hoped for forever. That you would just stay on your own field, and do that there.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make it so much easier for everybody. Just figure out what is it that we're trying to test for with the tracking portion of the sport, and let's find something else that's much more competitor friendly,
and dog friendly.
I mean, I was for 30 years driving 2 hours each way out to who knows where, and sometimes not even finding tracking, and then sneaking onto somebody's farmland.
I did it too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
that's the worst part of the sport. Yeah. The actual phase is fun. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great sport, right?
But the hassle and how unfair it is to different competitors based on their geographic location.
Yeah, I mean, I think during the evolution of the sport, I mean, it was probably easy in Germany early on. There's all these great farmlands, there's all this fields.
Absolutely.
And here we got foxtails too, which is another thing. Your dog sucks up a foxtail and you're really toast, right?
That is a big problem. But you go back to, like, I think kind of the center for all the sport these days is like Kentucky and that area. It's a hotbed, and boy, you just drive around there and you're just like, look at the grass, look at the grass.
No, right?
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. That's one of that's how you know that you've really gone off the deep end, is everywhere you drive, you're just like, oh, there's tracking.
I know, right?
Oh, there's tracking. Oh,
I
wish I had Goofy with me now.
I know, right? I mean, because I used to love the idea of tracking. You know, I think it's just this it's because it's so zen.
Yeah.
You're out there, you're putting these footprints. But I mean, I do think, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert in the sport at all, but it is a very unnatural method of tracking this footprint to footprint. It's not like real police dogs don't track like that, right?
Yeah, very stylized.
Yeah. So that's a great input for tracking. So the other thing that I think, and if you've bred Malinois for a long time, so you know, another big concern of mine in the sport is, now, not if you've got a super great decoy, and there's so many great decoys now. These young guys coming up are just, they're fast, they're agile, they're reading dogs the way they should be reading them. But the old guys can't catch the dogs, right? So, and I'm not saying the old guys because we're old guys, but you know, like every time I see a long bite, I'm like this. I'm just dying.
And no matter what, this sport is hard on the dogs. Like Elf and Dewey now, I can see that they've got battle scars. Even though
like what?
I was, like with the lameness, Dewey, if we go on a long bike ride, all of a sudden he'll be limping. Elf is left hip for whatever reason, and he's got excellent hips off aid, but I can see, and no matter what, you cannot have impacts, and no matter what, I don't care how young or whatever, guys are going to stuff your dog. Now they have in training new technology, new toys that they can hold those sleeves off to the side so the dog's not making impact. But just to give you an idea of the evolution of this sport, it used to be like, oh, we want the dog to center punch you.
Right.
We want the dog to really run into you and show that. And the dog's S back would turn into an S, you know? And how many times could they do that? They can't. It was crazy. It's the worst part, that it's exciting, but it's just really rough.
So you agree with me? That's when if you're going to put your dog in a trial, the long bite is your biggest fear.
Oh yeah, there's that is, well, I'm going to know who is the decoy. Do I trust that decoy? And it depends on my dog. Is my dog going to run up there and stand in front of him and bite? Okay, I'm not worried about it because he's not going to do that. I've seen some high-level dogs just kind of run down the field and slow down, and and they've won nationals. I've seen it.
So you're saying before on the long way, they're coming in full speed, then they slow down.
Up. Now I don't know today because of the technique. Now guys are really able to take those dogs on the fly without any impact, and now it's just the stretching of the spine and the jaw.
Right.
But the dogs these dogs are in really great shape. They're biting all the time. Like I wouldn't take Elf out now. Because he hasn't been working out. He'd have to get a lot of training so that he develops his head and jaw and neck muscles to be able to do a long bite. But you have these sleeves that you can hold off to your hip. I always have them off my left hip because that's the side, the elbow side typically with most decoys, so that there's going to be the chance, I'm trying to minimize the chance of impact on the dog and on the dog's back. So that's a sketchy part of the whole sport. And your dog I remember when Goofy trialed it, everything, he had a bad, something was hurt on him. Yeah,
he had something. It was the weirdest thing, because I remember that too. But it was before, he literally came out limping.
And you know, when that limping is typically in their spine, it's not because they sprained an ankle or something. Well,
he has some issues with his lower spine, slight issues, but that was 5+ years ago.
And in the sport, you'll see it, and especially if your decoys have not been athletic enough or not used the right equipment to ensure, or you don't know enough to say, hey, hold the sleeve here
to the side,
put it out here and have it target here, have it target here, have it target. And that's from the very beginning. When the puppy's young, he always knows that's where the sleeve is going to be. If you start moving that sleeve around, now the dog's zigzagging, and now the dog is going to end up center punching you. You've got to be really disciplined on those long bites and the development of those long bites.
So do you think that that's something that you can take a young pup and teach them? Like, in other words, you're saying you're always going to hold it off your left hip. That's a big piece, right? So the dog was always going through, and he's kind of pointing towards your left shoulder, right?
He's going to point right off your left side, and for sure, 100%. But you'll have little weirdnesses happen, like Elf started to to actually curve to that side.
As he went in?
And yeah, he's like a little genius. He goes, I know where it is. And he would curve around it because he knows it's going to be, so he'd be running over, boom. So you have to start working on that curvature because the judge is going to ding you because it wasn't as direct as it could have been and get him going straight again.
But isn't it worth that couple points to know that your dog is actually taking this?
Yeah, definitely you want to do that. And that might happen. It might not.
Right.
It might not happen. But you're always trying to figure out, looking for every little extra point. When Elf won the regionals, I talked to Ivan on the phone the night before. Elf was in first place by 4 or 5 points, and he was going to be the last dog to go in the regional event in Arizona in protection. And I talked to Ivan, and I said, Elf's in first. He's done this in tracking. He's done this in obedience. And Frank Phillips was the judge, as a matter of fact. Great guy.
Great guy.
And you know what Ivan said to me? He says, now you fight for every point. You know, as a handler, you go out there and you might have to do something very subtle that you want to make sure the dog comes back to you, the dog runs the blinds right, all the little facets.
You don't want to lose.
Because you lose your dog points.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so you got to be on point. The dog's going to take care of its job. You do your job.
Yeah. That's interesting. So talk about the difference, because what my big concern was, I didn't even think about what you're saying, is, you know, that dog comes in and he bites and jams, right? So he's compressing his spine. Yeah. Now you're talking about when they're super fast, and now you've got a really good decoy who can really catch him nicely, that the dog is going to stretch, because when they go by, all that speed is now torquing him out to the other side,
you'll see his tail up over his head. So I could show you video of Elf
I want to see
at this very, I mean, he is by like barely a tooth. He's on it, and he's up here. And the thing that's really a great characteristic is by the time he hits the ground, he's already re-gripped full.
Wow.
And Frank, the judge, could see that. You see that, he doesn't want that little bite. He wants all
full
of
grip.
it. Yeah, so these are some of the qualities, but that's genetic.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say, I trained that. No, that's a lot of people do that. They think it's them. No, it's you. Just got Kobe Bryant on your team.
Yeah. You got definitely lucky.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Always think about the coach.
Yeah, that's true.
I forgot his name now.
Pat.
No, not the coach of the Bulls and then the coach of the Lakers.
Oh, yeah. So did you see the what was that, The Last Dance?
Yeah.
Amazing,
yeah.
right? Amazing.
Yeah, I'll remember it before it's over. But, you know, when you have players like that, you might think, he's a great coach, but come on.
Yeah.
And that's what you see. The guys that can be super successful with multiple dogs, especially if they had young dogs, those are the ones I look at.
I agree.
The guys that are really successful with one dog, they may have something going on, I don't know, but can you do it with their next dog? And how many dogs do you go through before you get your next dog?
I always have that issue with people, like they go through dogs. I talked about it with Oscar, I talked about it with Frank, and it's like, I mean, I'm just so committed to dogs. Like, I mean, Maya was a board and train, right? I mean, Maya, like, can you board and train? Sure, I could. And then 5 months later, they're like, well, I said, I don't think she's going to work out with your family. Would you want to keep her? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So I never board and trained another dog because I knew I'd end up with them, you know. But that's really hard. So when you see people who go through this, who have, you know, this dog didn't work out, this one didn't work out, this one didn't work out. Sometimes it's better for the dogs. Like Frank and I talked about, he said, well, I had this dog, I got him to a certain level, and somebody at his level or your level, okay, I get it. But the average person, like, you know, you're looking at it at a club level, you see these people, they get a dog, and then the training director can't do anything with it. So, you got a bad dog, I'm going to get you another dog. And then that dog, I got you another dog. And it just keeps going down this line, this endless line of dogs.
Yeah, it has really always been one of my pet peeves. I mean, you could see if Goofy is an all-world, you get rid of him.
Yeah, right.
And the problem I have is I hear what Frank's saying. It's just that I personally, you know, I feel like such a betrayal.
Me too.
That you're not good enough, son.
Yeah.
You go live here.
Yeah.
And then the next phase, so it's me and my psychological guilt, but it's also, I think living with me is a really great life.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, and if it was maybe one of my family members that I really know is going to make a good home, I might be able to do it. But otherwise, I'm just stuck.
Yeah,
I'm stuck with you for better or worse. It's like getting married and you just for better or worse.
You're locked in.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought when Frank was talking about, he said, you know, he did all this great stuff, and he's going to the World Games and doing all this stuff. I mean, something I could dream about but never aspire to. you're giving the dog the chance of, okay, you know, I get it, and he doesn't want to collect. I mean, you've got so many dogs. Like, we've got 4 dogs here, and like, you know, I remember when Goofy didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, you know what? Then we'll just hang out. And Maya wasn't going to do it.
Yeah,
so
and say if I had my dogs and they lived in a kennel.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you're
like
and they live in a kennel. They're not really in my family, and they're not working out. But you'll make them a pet dog?
Yeah,
oh,
perfect.
that would be better.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, right.
That's a good situation,
Yeah.
but that's not my situation. My dogs all live with me.
Yeah, I mean,
they live with the family.
Yeah, that's such a cool thing, and that's something you see so rarely, that people can actually have multiple intact, hard-working dogs that will perform, but that are just so friendly. And that's something. I mean, I think your dog should be. Like, you walk in, Goofy's there, and Maya's there. It's like, you know, I mean, I think if I wasn't here, somebody broke in, it might be a different story. But if they see me coming in with you, you've got no reason to mess around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a great quality for you to give your dog. Well, what a gift.
I think, like Frank said, more and more people are this way now. It used to be in the old days, no, you'll make your dog soft.
Yeah, yeah.
I had somebody look in the back of my Forerunner, 30 years ago, and look at it and go, oh, I got a pillow inside his crate. You're making him soft.
right.
Really?
That training,
this
that whole
mentality
idea.
that they have to live this Spartan life and be starved in order to track, and all of that silliness is just bizarre. It's the first thing I thought of in the early days, and I looked and I go, I don't need to do that to my dog to get him to run blinds.
Yeah. So easy to get him to do stuff motivationally.
Yeah, I could just tell him and he'll do it.
Yeah.
I might have to repeat it or explain what I want done,
right.
but he's going to do it. I don't have to punish him for something he doesn't know.
Yeah, punish. So I go through this all the time, and I see all these top trainers, right? They're very, very well known. I tend to not mention dog trainers' names because of certain reasons, but they use this word punishment because it's in the vocabulary of dog training. So you see, there's all the studies you see on e-collars, even the ones that are pro e-collar, and there's one out of Hanover that Frank sent me that I'd already seen before. I thought it was something new, and they talk about punishment, right? So I always said, when I started teaching my program in the shelter 10 plus years ago, I said, I will strike the word punishment from my vocabulary because I don't punish dogs, but I correct them. So that whole dialogue of, the dog is being punished for this, I'm not going to, because like you said, I'm not going to punish the dog, but you correct your dogs all the time, right? Because and as a teacher, let's just address that for people, because punishment is punitive, right?
This is the classical, this is the definition of operant conditioning.
Yep.
Punishment is positive punishment, negative punishment.
Right.
Punishment is any stimulus that decreases a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So even Frank said something, I was listening to it, I go, no, that is technically punishment.
Right.
It's just this word is so loaded as you're being mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when I tell my dog, knock it off, there's a punisher.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it, it's a punisher.
Yep.
It's this. And when you use low-level electricity and you're tapping them on the back, knock it off. Look,
punishment.
Stop. I know what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Stop it. These are all punishers, but the word is so loaded with the kind of abuse I've witnessed that is horrible. That's also punishment. So punishment is a wide spectrum.
Yeah.
It's really cruel, or it's like a feather, or it's just a word. Hey, that's a punisher.
Yeah.
And so any sort of reward, that's the opposite word, is any stimulus that increases behavior. Mm-hmm. That's all that is.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's such, like I said, it's just so negatively perceived.
That's right.
It's like you get into these certain words that have so much meaning, and they're just a bunch of letters put together. Why not look at it more like what you just said? Punishment is the removal of pleasure. Right.
Well, it's anything that decreases the behavior. So if the dog's barking, you say, stop it.
Okay.
And he stops it.
That was a punishment.
That's a punisher.
It's verbal punishment.
Now, if you stop it, the dog keeps barking. Stop it. The dog keeps barking. Or the dog's barking, you hit it.
Yeah.
The dog's barking, you hit it. Knock it off. You hit it. Now it's becoming abuse. Same thing with your teenager.
Sure.
You keep punishing, now it's abusive. Mm-hmm. You think you're punishing, but you're not, because the behavior's not stopping. Mm-hmm. You're just abusing the animal. So, does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
See, you have to go to, if you want that behavior stopped, You have to go to the place that stops the behavior.
I agree 1,000%.
You have to go there. And you can make it worse by doing lighter and lighter and lighter. And now the dog gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like it develops a scab on his neck. That it can't even feel it anymore. It's used to it.
Yeah. So that's a big piece, because you're talking about that. I always said in aggression, what I would do is if a dog comes at level 4 aggression, I'm coming at 6. To correct, or what you're saying. I say correct, but that whole concept, and I've seen it a lot in pet dog training, and I've seen it a lot in shelters. What they'll do, and it taught me a lot about IPO. So the dog comes in at this level of aggression, like a 4 or 5, and they're coming in like a 3 or 4.
Aggressing towards what?
Towards another dog.
Okay.
They're starting. Their hackles are up. They're starting to lip lick. They're getting real stiff. So that's like a 3 or 4 to me, right? Where a 10 is latched on and not letting go. But people would at that point start going, hey, no, hey, no. And in Schutzhund, what we do is when the dog is barking and getting into it, we encourage, yeah, good boy, yeah, good boy, yeah, good boy. And it builds that. So my theory was always you're coming underneath it and pushing it up in Schutzhund, and with aggression in pet dogs or shelter dogs, you're doing the same thing when you're saying, hey, knock it off, and it's not punishing, it's not correcting that behavior, then it's just festering it.
Yeah, the worst thing, I tell people the worst thing you could do is, you got to make a split second decision about when you're going to tell your dog to stop something, because you got to decide right there, is the dog going to stop? Yeah. Otherwise, you don't want to say anything, because you're just teaching the dog to ignore you. Yeah. You can't do that. Yeah. Now, for me, with a dog that's aggressing against another dog, for me, that slip lead is really good for that, because for me, that is, I'm just going to lift that dog's feet off, and I'm going to look and see, stop it, and I want to get him to redirect his attention. I want him to look to me like, what are you doing that for? And I go, knock that off, put him back down. I want to diffuse the situation to a degree. I don't want to add any gasoline to that aggressive fire. Right. And so I want to, when you take air away, you're taking a lot of that away, and then they can, it's like getting slapped in the face. Now they can look back at you and say, knock that up. This and then you can probably the next time around just like a little bit, and they'll know, oh yeah, I forgot, sorry. And you're good job. Yeah. Good job. And I don't think, for me, I don't need to give you a hot cookie, dog for that, because that isn't going to do anything for them. I used to give so many cookies that I had one, Anne, my first, she was like nervous around people, and I gave her so many hot dogs that I remember when we were on the boardwalk down in Pacific Beach. All of a sudden, she just, just a pile of hot dogs on the ground. I was like, oh, I think I've overdone it with the little rewards. Like I was trying to counter condition her. Like, here, let me give you treats this whole time. And the question is, wait, was I really rewarding her anxiety? Right. Or was I teaching her not to be anxious? I think a lot of it does. I think you invariably, you got to be careful with that counter conditioning, that you're not just reinforcing the psychological state that they're in. Yeah, for sure. That's the same way when somebody's depressed. Oh, poor baby. You're kind of rewarding their bad place. Same thing with your dogs. How are they feeling? And are you rewarding it? When they're misbehaving and you got mad at them, now you're patting them. The worst thing. Just let hands off. Let them be. So now you said, I'm fascinated by this, because, and it's very disappointing. I always wish I lived. There's certain people I wish I lived closer to. You're one of them, because I would have loved to train my next puppy with you. And I said, there's a very small handful of people in the world. You're one of them that I wish I lived closer to, and none of them are really that famous. It's people that on the below the line that I just always admired. Now you're done with Schutzhund. You said pretty much you're not doing it anymore, right? Yeah. Why? What happened? I think, gosh, it's such a difficult sport, and I think, well, I got married, and my wife isn't in the sport, and I'd always done it with my partner, and once I was out of it, and it always had been an insane struggle to do it. I was, a one-man band for the most part in my club, doing all of the decoy work, and it was just so much in 30 years. I kind of, this one event with Elf, I tried so hard to win the Southwestern Regionals. So many, I'd had 5 dogs on that podium. One of my females, Darka, was on it 3 times. Uncas was a second on it, and Dewey had been a third, and Elf the previous year should have won it, and didn't come back over the jump and lost by a point when he was 2. So when I finally got to that thing, it was kind of silly because it's just the Southwestern Regionals. But, you know, I'd won the DVG Regionals on numerous occasions. But this one event, plus it's a German Shepherd organization, you know, you're always at a disadvantage to some extent working with your off-breed. But when we finally got that, I think that was like, oh, finally, because you know, competitively, you know, to be successful, to be really successful, you got to have some talent. Then you have to have some means. You have to have some sort of income that allows you to travel to events, to buy expensive dogs, to buy trailers, to buy all that, to pay people to train with. It's good to be in an area where there's tracking. There's, you know, all of these components to have a team. Like I went to a DVG Nationals a million years ago, and Phil Holcher, who's a big, you know, name in the old days in DVG, I don't know how many times he's won the Nationals, but I remember going there, and he was, we were doing warm-ups for protection, and he was going to show his dog, I think it was Master, who had actually went on to win it, and he had a qualified, a talented decoy in all 6 blinds. 6 guys.
I love
6
it.
guys. Now you're competing against that, you know, and it's an uphill. And at a certain point, it was just I've done it, and now I'm going to concentrate on my family. This whole COVID thing came right at this time, and I enjoyed so much. I was still teaching, and then I just was at home with my family, and I just thought, you know what? I never thought about retiring. And then I thought, I like being home with my family.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm going to do it. And I just pulled the plug. And
did you close the club?
I think the club, I don't know if it's still going on. I just closed that chapter and rode away like Augustus McCrae and Lonesome Dove. Sometimes you just, what do you do with death? You just ride away from it.
Yeah, wow, that's fun. So no ideas of getting back into it? Or
No, I could. The minute I do anything, brings back all of the part of it, you know.
Well, I get that too. I mean, I have this whole idea where, like, I went to the regionals, and there was this part of me where I was like, I want to train. But then it gets back to the thing of, like, you drive an hour and a half to the club. You hang out for 3 hours with just bullshit talking.
And who are you training with?
And who are you training with, right?
No, if I lived next door to Ivan, you know, I was fortunate enough to spend some time in Florida and see, and I go, and this is one of my early, I don't want to say influenced me, because all I was doing, I just needed somebody to validate it, that, this is the right way to go. Right. And I saw that he was winning things, and so I struck up a relationship and attended a number of his seminars, and had the occasion to go spend some time in Florida with him. And you know what? He lives, he and his wife at the time, they live with their 4 dogs in the house, just like... And they've won world championships. Just lives exactly the same way. And so that's the kind of thing that if you had somebody like that, you'd do it.
Yeah, you want to do it.
You do it because they can see your dog. That's what you need with your decoy. You might be the most talented guy in the world, but can you see what the dog is feeling right now? Do you know which trigger to pull?
Yeah. I mean, the decoy's the big piece, isn't it?
It's a huge piece. And that's also... the guys that I really respect, the people that I really respect as trainers, they also are really capable decoys. So I'm thinking of Ivan, I'm thinking of Marco Coscansalo, Tim Cutterson up in Northern California. These are very talented decoys, and they're great trainers. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat those guys when they come out with a dog.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just
so if you live right in that deal, so those are all the components. You have tracking, you have a super talented dude that you enjoy their company, and then you get back into it. I sure have a couple of dogs that I would do it with.
Would you?
I'm telling you, this little Malinois that I have, Anaconda, she from Christine Kisser's breeding, and Marco's also participated, I think, but it's Christine's litter. It's the best female.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a shame, but she's a very beloved family pet.
Yeah, well,
she's a troublemaker.
She's got a good life, though, right?
That's what happens. That's why I bet you've experienced. the pound is full of good dogs because
dogs.
they're just too much of a pain in the butt at home.
Yeah. Well, people just don't understand that. The shelter has so many good dogs, but people focus on the bad ones so much.
Yeah.
If they just let those bad ones be put down, and I said, like, if I could wave a magic wand and I'd put them all down myself, because if out of 100 dogs in the shelter, I would say 90 are good. Maybe 85. If we got rid of the other 15, there's no problems. But people focus so much on those 15 dogs that, they're putting a square peg in a round hole. It's just, if that dog can, they say, well, you can handle that dog. I go, I don't want him.
Yeah, why?
Why do I want that dog? I want a nicely bred dog.
That's the sad thing about what you did with that puppy.
Which one?
What anybody did with that puppy is that when they were they condemned it by not correcting this behavior if it had a chance. But once it's biting people and once it's scared, and once it's always going to be a management issue the rest of its life.
I always say that. I mean, it's better to squash that behavior out right away than to try to manage it.
Do you still call it the pound?
Yeah, the shelter.
The shelter.
More politically correct.
The shelter, yeah. Because back in the day, I can remember when, I don't know if you know about this, but I can remember back in the day, a million years ago, they would have boxes out, like in up towards the San Gabriel Mountains up north, where you would just drop a dog down a chute into concrete barrier, and they would be picked up back then.
Yeah. And what they did too back then, as sad as this is, but they would take these dogs, hook them up to an exhaust pipe on a car, and they would just gas them to death.
Yeah, I've seen.
There's so many bad things, and I've seen so many bad things in dog sports, like really crappy stuff. But it just never really measured up to the bad stuff that happened to these dogs in shelters. The way they put a bullet in their head, or they just put them in, asphyxiate and put them in plastic bags. It's really sad. So that a dog's life can be like, there's Goofy, like enjoying his life, and our dogs. But then you've got these dogs living in these concrete, cages, and they're just waiting to be killed. Just give your dog some training. Teach him a trick. Teach him, like what you said. You teach your dog, bang, play dead. What a great little game.
Listen. It's the same thing as being a parent. Why did you have a kid?
Yeah, it's true.
If you're not going to do all that you need, and it's a lot of work to be a good parent, and it's a lot of work to be a good pet owner. You think it's just, if you don't enjoy picking up their poop and brushing them and feeding them and walking them, what in the world are you doing? And this is as a breeder. This is and that's why the people that scared me the most were the people that wanted to win the world championship, and they want one of those puppies, because now I know that puppy, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, and they don't want him just because they want a family pet. No. They want something for their ego. And that's the worst. A good, healthy, happy, active family, stable family that has resources to take that puppy to the vet if it needs to be. Yeah. Those are the wonderful homes. I have one family that got one of Dewey's sisters, and this was the puppy that I thought, this one needs a special home. She needs a special situation. And just it's luck. But I found a home in Iowa, and every Christmas they sent me a video of her opening up her Christmas presents. That's awesome. Her name is Venice. She was a D puppy, but they named her Venice because that's where they visited when they were here. So they named her Venice, and every Christmas they have a couple little dogs. They have a couple of children that are playing basketball, just an all-American family. And it's my favorite thing around Christmas is getting that video. They set it on Messenger, and I just watch.
Yeah, it's got to make you feel great,
Yeah,
right?
it's that's the greatest part. The other stuff is the worst part of breeding, and you just never want to do it.
Right? I could never. People say, "Would you breed Goofy?" I said, I would breed him with somebody who would be responsible. I don't want to be the guy. Like if I have 6 puppies in my house, 6 are staying.
Yeah. That's the problem.
I can't get rid of them.
And also, if 99 of those 100 puppies go to the greatest home in the world,
but you worry about
the one goes to a home that ends up selling them to a broker, and God knows what happens to that puppy. All those 99, unfortunately, I only look at that bad, sad situation, and that's the worst part about breeding.
Yeah, I can imagine. You think you'll ever breed again?
I doubt it. I think what I'll be doing is just going to a shelter and getting a pup.
Really?
Maybe an old dog.
So who's
little ones.
Who's in your house now? Who do you still got left?
I've got Brogan, who's on her last legs. She's wobbling, walking down the street, but she's still hanging in there. That's Uncas and Annie. And then I also have Camus, who's Uncas, and a female that I got that I bred to in Texas. Camus and then I have
Dewey and Elf.
Dewey and Elf, and then I have Vim and
Anaconda.
Anaconda.
Wow.
Yeah, those two are a handful. So 6 is the legal limit.
Oh, you've got 6 limit. We got a 4 limit on your 3.
No, we're 6.
Wow, that's
yeah,
good.
so for once I'm at the legal limit. Right. But I think technically they also count cats, and they also count chickens.
Do. Yeah.
So
chickens.
Yeah, I don't know. They allow chickens where I'm at, so no roosters.
But they don't count them.
I don't know if they count those as pets.
And
it's weird that they would count a cat as a pet, because cats are kind of like feral animals.
Yeah,
but we got a couple of cats, 7 chickens, and all the wildlife that I also feed out there.
That's funny. Funny. So once these guys go, you think you're just going to go with shelter dogs for a while?
I think I want to get somebody that is just low maintenance. Somebody that was like Cleo, my Rottweiler, but smaller. You know, because when they get older and you get older, it's hard carrying them around.
And you're gonna carry them. You're like me. It's like we're not putting you down because you can't make it down the stairs.
No.
I'm walking. I'm carrying you down.
Yeah, and I got the wheelchairs and all that other stuff set up. Yeah. But little, and I might just go get. It blows my mind that somebody might get rid of their 11-year-old dog and drop him off. I'm like, what?
There's a guy I know who runs I always said if I had my way, I would just do senior dogs. The last year, just give them this amazing year.
Yeah, and it's not. People think, oh, you're going to be poor. I don't pour a bunch of money into my old dogs.
You don't need to. You don't need to.
The thing is, when Brogan's 14 now, when she goes, I have a vet that will come to the house and euthanize her, and I've been through it so many times. It's sad, but like I said to you earlier, it's, all those days leading up to that day are like the worst. Cloudy skies. Yeah. And when Brogan finally goes, the sky will open up. There'll be a little sunlight and in a day or two, you'll be okay. You just move forward. That's all you can do. But when Brogan goes, I'll be down to 5 then, and so, and I'll just gradually, and getting us smaller and smaller. And when Brogan goes, the vet always asks me, who's her vet? Do you know what? Brogan's never been to the vet. Wow. 14 years. That's a Malinois for you.
Yeah, good Malinois. They do last a long time.
I do all their vaccines. She's at the vet, obviously, to do her OFA and her certifications. Right. But otherwise, she's never had a day in her life where she was sick.
So awesome.
Yeah, and cool. I could say that about all of none of them have been. I can't think of anybody that's been to the vet. So they go their whole life. Yeah. And I just keep taking care of them. I have gone through the route where I'm spending $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 in the last year of a dog's life. And I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's not fair. It just prolongs the inevitable, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, a young dog, if they need something, it's fair, but otherwise.
Yeah, I've amputated my Rottweiler's legs. They had bone cancer.
You didn't do it.
No, I sat there and watched it, though, outside the operation room, watched them go through the layers of tissue on the back leg. But it's just a waste of money, and the dogs last 6 months or 7 months that you get for those thousands of dollars. He's not that happy.
Sometimes the quality is worse, right?
And finally they don't even lift their head up when you come home. They're so depressed. Yeah. And you're going to have to do it.
Yeah. So you've bred a lot of dogs. I don't want to keep you all day because you got a long drive back. And by the way, thank you so much for driving all this way. You drove a long way to get here to do this, and
the traffic wasn't bad.
I hope it's good on the way back too. Vaccines.
Yeah.
Right. So you breed a puppy. So I just want to run through this with you because it's such a red flag. Like the amount of vaccines we're giving dogs, we're over vaccinating and stuff like that. I just want to ask you because and I don't know about this. All right. I've followed Gene Dodge, Dr. Gene Dodge and stuff. What do you do with it from 1 day to 1 year? Tell me your vaccine protocol.
Well, I follow Dodd's protocol.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
Well, I'm just very, very conservative. I would like only, if I remember, it's just the distemper and the parvo are the two that I worry about.
Me too.
Kennel cough, it's a joke, or the
leptospirosis.
I don't worry about those things. I just want those, and I don't remember. It's been a while since I had a litter. So
what about worming?
I think I have wormed puppies a little bit.
Okay.
I've had puppies that I could see that they had worms.
Okay.
They get them from their mother. They're in their mother's breast milk.
Okay. Heartworm, is that something you worry about?
I don't worry about heartworm.
You don't?
No, not where I live.
Okay. So Southern California doesn't really have any issues with it, I thought, right?
Not that I know of. I was going to be taking some trips, some adventure trips with Anna, and I got some Heartworm, Heart Guard, if I was going to be going up there and that kind of stuff.
So you do the distemper and the parvo, which is a 3 series, right?
Yeah, I just do it. I don't know what it would be. Well, you know, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find that window when the mother's immune system has stopped working for the puppies, protecting the puppies, and now they're on their own. You got to try and find that. So that's why you do whatever it's 6, 8, 10, or whatever, or 6, you know, 6, 12,
16 or 18
16,
weeks,
whatever.
Right?
You know, you find that, trying to find that window. And then I do 5 and 1 on when they're a year old.
Oh, so you do the 5 and 1?
Yeah, I'll do it 5 and 1, and then.
And that's got distemper, parvo, rabies, and a couple other.
No.
Oh, sorry, the rabies. How do you do the rabies?
I don't do. I've never done a rabies.
Really?
Sorry.
No. Sorry.
I'm going to get arrested.
We'll bleep that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've always avoided the rabies one. I don't think there's been an instance of canine rabies in California.
30 years.
I thought it's even longer than that. But you know, it's one of those things that's on the books.
Yeah.
I just heard. You know, listen. I've gone the wrong way on vaccines and gone too hippie, too Birkenstocks, and I lost a dog, a wonderful dog that loved me very much.
Distemper?
Distemper, and no, parvo.
Oh.
Parvo, not distemper, parvo. And that was me going too far.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do the whole more natural route. Now I've kind of gone back to a more balanced.
Yeah,
same thing
middle.
with training, with
right.
punishment and corrections. You know, I didn't mention this, but I got into the whole sport thinking I can score points, win events by not hurting my dogs.
Right.
So I want to make an example. And now with this whole pure positive thing, the pendulum swings all the way. Now I'm on the other side of the thing. Like, wait, you got to tell them no.
Yeah.
And I was way over into the natural medicine thing. I lost a couple of dogs for different reasons.
Okay.
And then, but I never swung over to vaccinate them every month for a while, like some people were doing.
That's insane.
And ruining their immune systems.
Yeah.
And so, and Rottweilers and Pit Bulls, they're notoriously susceptible to parvo, for instance.
For sure, yeah.
You know, Dobermans. I don't know what it is about those guys, but man, they'll die quick.
Yeah.
And I have a buddy who just got a little pit bull, or it's a pit bull that they adopted recently, and thing had parvo. Man. 2 of its litter mates died. This one, they immediately got it to the vet, got it hydrated on antibiotics, and this one's through. But boy, the sooner you get them in,
for sure,
the better.
Yeah, look at the signs.
I don't know what it is about those dogs.
Yeah,
they just go
dogs
boom.
Have a slower, just their system, I think, it shuts down faster. All right. Anyway, I'm going to cut it here because this is an hour and a half. It's my longest podcast on record.
Okay, sorry.
All right, you got to. No, sorry. Thank you for coming out. You got to come back.
Yeah,
you got to come back anytime. For sure. I love it. Danny Craig, Temple of the Tree.
Yeah,
that was your that's the name of your kennel, and
it's a YouTube channel that you can see some of my dogs
running
with me.
Okay, I'm gonna put. You have those videos on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, because I saw them on Facebook. You got to see them. I mean, they're just. I love watching those. Just
a little more meditative. You know, it's like.
Do you have your own? Is it your drone?
Yeah, it's my drone.
Oh, okay.
It's a Skydio drone that I use.
Oh, you got the Skydio.
And I just got your little vlogging camera. So
yeah, this is great. You got to do more videos.
We take some trips up north, and we're gonna.
I'm gonna link your channel because I think people should look at your stuff, and even if they're not doing any sports with their dogs, they should just know what a great life they can have with their dogs.
Yeah, it can be peaceful.
Yeah,
and let them run free.
I love it. I love it, man. All right, I'm gonna have you back. All right.
All right, super.
All right.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks.